A lot of people seem confused and surprised about how 60% of Latino voters voted for Donald Trump after he's made countless racist and xenophobic remarks against not only Latinos, but also immigrants from other countries. But Afro-Latinos, we're not surprised at all. Racism is alive and well in the Latino culture with things like mejorar la raza, which means to better the race, which is like street eugenics. Calling your family members based on their skin tone, like negro, negrita, as a loving term, but it's obviously derogatory because the anti-blackness is so prevalent. And the craziest part, if we were able to break down the Afro-Latino votes from the white and mixed Latinos, we'd probably see that Afro-Latinos inflated the Harris support from Latinos.
PSA, racism isn't just, I hate black people. It actually can look like this. Well, black people are just more violent. Maybe if they stopped selling drugs, they wouldn't get in trouble as often. Yeah, well, black people just shouldn't be criminals and then they won't get killed. All lives matter. White privilege isn't real, okay? I've had a hard life. Oh my god, we're in the ghetto. This is like a bad neighborhood, you know? What type of people live here? Like, what type? I'm seeing like a lot of graffiti. No, I don't eat there. I don't even know if they actually speak English or not, so I just think that type of hair looks really unprofessional. If they have a problem, they can go back to their old country. Oh my god, what I said wasn't racist. I can say the N-word because my wife's brother's kid's uncle is black. I don't know, their names are just like weird. No, because in Africa, they look down on white people. Why can't they just learn to talk like us? Racism isn't a thing. There are black people everywhere.
I lived in Miami for almost a year, and while I was there, in the apartment building that I was living in Pembroke Pines, there were some Mexican guys doing some repairs on the roof. They saw me pass by walking my dog, and they say, "Beautiful, morena." And I was like, "Oh, thank you." And they say, "Where are you from?" And I say, "Cuba." They say, "Cuba? We didn't know people in Cuba look like you." And I said, "Like me, like what? Black?" And he just stopped on his tracks and changed the subject. The majority of Latino people are very racist. I didn't know that I was living in a very racist country until I met my Jamaican husband, and he made me realize how racist people in Cuba were. And once your eyes are open to this, you cannot unsee it. There was a time in Jamaica when you could watch Spanish television. We had two TV stations, Univision and Telemundo. These TV stations, each of them had one black anchor. One had one female for the news, and the other one had a male, two black people. Both TV stations show a wide array of telenovelas, which is basically Spanish soap operas. And these telenovelas were made and produced in Latin America. Brazil, Colombia, Mexico are one of the biggest places where soap operas are made. Now you tell me now, how a Colombian telenovela of 350 episodes don't have one black person in it? If you see a black actor on a telenovela, is actually playing a slave or a character that they are trying to bring back to life, like Celia Cruz. So these have just added to that white supremacy and had made people from other places believe that black people doesn't exist in Latin America any at all. So if as a Jamaican, you travel to Miami and you suffer what he did, don't be surprised. I'm sorry this happens to you, but it's a sad truth. Hopefully it change soon. This will change soon in the future.
Hello guys, let's talk about this one together. The conversation that surrounds around the Latino people and their political identity and position is something to go by. And of course, deeply rooted anti-blackness that exists within the culture, the American culture. A lot of people were shocked when 60% of those particular Latinos supported Trump. And of course, despite his racist and xenophobic, remarks here and there. But as for many of, Americans, it wasn't a shock at all. But from this particular statement, from Majorar La Raza to colorism in, people's families, the truth is that racism isn't just about blatant hatred. It is also about the way we've been cultured or been conditioned to see ourselves, maybe being closely attached to the whiteness than black. And if we could, of course, break down the Latinos, Afro-Latinos vote separately from the just concluded, from the, the elections that Donald Trump, the numbers would tell an even deeper story, that it is of essence here, but therefore It is a tough conversation, but it's one that we need to have. Stay tuned, because at the end of this particular conversation, you're going to listen through these particular videos. I'll be back with more thoughts and reactions of the same. But again, don't forget to do dropping us your comments in the comment section of what exactly you think. Is this, going on, or we just having our own, stories here? So let's unpack this one together. And of course, at the end, I'll be back, as I'd already said.
I called out the racism and colorism in the Latina community and got so many comments like this one. What about Black people being racist against Latina people? Let's talk about it. But first, quick reminder. Correcting someone's grammar or spelling, even if they're a racist prick, is still something I don't appreciate on my page. Access to education is privilege that not all of us have. And I mean this in a completely non-ironic way. My own grandparents never had access to education, including elementary school. They never learned how to read or write. My grandpa collected trash, and my grandma sold candy on the streets, while other children attended elementary school. I myself am neurodiverse, and I struggle with spelling. Now, let's get into this comment. First of all, a lot, millions of Latina people are Black, which seems to be something that a lot of you commenting this continuously forget, which in and of itself is colorism. Now, why have I never addressed this, even though there's many videos on my page that you can find about me addressing the colorism and racism in my own community? It's because I'm not Black. I come from indigenous Mexican people. I feel confident talking about issues from my own community. Do I know what you're talking about? Yes. Have I experienced it myself? Last time was yesterday, when we went shopping with my dad before he left back to Mexico, and we were speaking in Spanish, and the person at the store kept basically racially profiling us throughout the entire store until I got fed up and left. And yes, that salesperson was a Black woman that then made a comment to another salesperson about the fact that my dad is paying with only cash because she remembered us from the day before. In that moment, I did not call her out when she basically called my dad a narco. The reason why is because I respect the boundaries of my dad and he doesn't want me to do that. I spent my whole life defending him because I have a lot of white privilege. And I know and respect that my dad does not appreciate these kind of confrontations, especially in a foreign country, in a language he doesn't speak. My dad doesn't speak English. So out of respect for him, I bit my tongue and we left without purchasing more. So yes, I know what these comments are referring to because I felt it too, many times. But it is important to remember the root of all of this. And the root all goes back to this. And that's why I will never stop saying that all of us should unite. And let's not forget who profits of communities of color being against each other. Because it's none of us. We gotta stick together and we gotta do better. And whataboutism is never helping a conversation.
I basically had the same experience the entire time that I was over there. People were very nice to me, but it was very clear that I did not belong, and it was ironic because of where I was staying. To provide some context to my confusion, okay, at this time I still had a relaxer, and I was under the impression that, I'm going to go to a foreign country where there are no Black people, and I'm not going to be able to get my hair done, and I don't want it to fall out, so I'd rather cut it off by choice. So for 6 months prior to the trip, I grew my hair out, I cut it all off, and then wore braids on the way down there. Now, when I got there, I was going to be under the impression that I was going to be getting the same treatment as my white peers. And I don't know why I thought that. I was really naive. I don't even think I was 21 yet. I was 20. But we get down there and all of my friends are treated like movie stars. I'm being so serious. I mean, literally the first day that we get down there, one of these girls, she was so beautiful. She was like 5'9", 5'10", very thin, conventional standard of American beauty, right? Blonde, blue eyes, big boobs, like gorgeous. We go into a local restaurant literally right across the street from our hostel, and these people are fawning all over her. Like, again, like she's some sort of celebrity. We also had, I think, a redhead with green eyes in that group, that they were also like all over. It was insane. We go across the street to this restaurant that is like literally right across the street from our hostel for lunch. And one of the waiters was just so enamored with her. Like, he grabbed her face and he kissed her just out of nowhere. Now, obviously, like, this was not the type of treatment I even wanted to begin with. But again, it was very clear that I was being treated differently. The number one incident that confirmed this for me was one night we decided that we were going to go into Gringolandia, which is the area that's what they called it, that we were going to go there and we were going to go to a club. I tell you, when I say we were in the back of the line, I'm talking about way in the back of the line. Out of nowhere, these two guys from inside the club come running out and pulling my friends to the inside of the club with a bunch of drink tickets. My friends had to hold my hand so that they knew that I was with them. Now, the reason I mentioned all what that I mentioned in the very beginning of the story is because of what happened literally the next day. I decided that I was going to go to the library or wherever I was going to study. And I decided to take a different route this time. And I walked by a black braiding shop. The province that was literally right next door to where I was is called Esmeraldas, and it's black. Everyone there is black, which is why everybody was being so chill to me, because they were under the assumption that I was from there as long as I didn't open my mouth. But the fact that I went to a completely different country, the fact that my host mom knew that I wasn't from there and never mentioned that there was a black province within walking distance says everything that I needed to know.
Hello tribe, welcome back in this particular show. I go by Sherlock. Now, the deep-rooted issues of racial identity, anti-blackness and political alignment within the Latino community challenges the common assumptions that Latinos as an ethnic minority, often marginalized by white dominated systems, would naturally align against figures like Donald Trump, who has historically made racist and xenophobic remarks. However, this indicates and highly suggests that the reality is far from being complex. The idea of better the race reflects an Eurocentric beauty standard that values lighter skin and European features over indigenous and African heritage. This ingrained mindset stems from colonial history, where whiteness was associated with power, status, and upward mobility, while blackness and indigenous identity were marginalized. The use of affectionate but racially charged terms like N-word in Latino households may seem harmless, but it reflects the normalization of anti-blackness. These labels reinforce racial hierarchies, where lighter-skinned Latinos are seen as more desirable and socially accepted than their darker-skinned counterparts. Get that clear? This is part of a broader problem where Afro-Latinos often experience discrimination within their own ethnic group. Many non-black Latinos see themselves as racially separate from black people and closer to whiteness. This perception influences their political choices, as they may prioritize economic interests, religious conservatism, or even the aspiration to assimilate into whiteness over solidarity with other marginalized groups. This explains why, a significant portion of Latinos voters supported Trump despite his xenophobic rhetoric. Some may not have seen themselves as the targets of his racism, or they believed his policies aligned with their interests more than his rhetoric offended them. So statements like white privilege isn't real, I've had a hard life, reflect a misunderstanding of systemic privilege. Many Latinos, especially those with lighter skin, do not see themselves as beneficiaries of white privilege, but rather as struggling individuals. This is common, talking point among some who reject racial discourse, believing that personal hardship negates or surpasses structural advantages that whiteness provides. The dismissive attitude towards black struggles, it quote in quotes, well, black people are just more violent. Maybe if they stopped selling drugs, they would get into trouble, as often reflects racial stereotypes that have been internalized within many Latinos communities. Now, these narratives fuel the perception that black people are responsible for their own oppression rather than being victims of systemic racism. And this rhetoric aligns closely with white conservative talking points and distances Latinos from identifying with black struggles. Of course, this matters to the Latinos. So the Latino community is diverse with different experiences based on race, class, and national origin. Afro-Latinos, for example, often have drastically different experiences from white or mixed Latinos. If Afro-Latinos votes were separated, the data would likely show that non-black Latinos were the primary drivers of Trump's Latino support. Of course, this highlights, therefore, the urgent need to address racial hierarchies within the Latino communities. These are my final thoughts. The conversation around the Latino identity and racism is very complex, but it is crucial. The myth that all people of color naturally align in solidarity against the white supremacy ignores the deep influence of colonialism, anti-blackness, and of course aspirational whiteness within Latino cultures. So therefore, addressing these particular issues requires self-reflection, education, especially education, and a willingness to change or to challenge long-standing cultural beliefs. If you do feel me, if I've stepped on your toes, do holler me, do drop me your comments in the comments section, kind tribe. Then of course, make sure that you are heard loud and clear on your sentiments and thoughts of what exactly you think of this particular video. I go by Sherlock once again. If in case this is your first time you bumped across this particular channel accidentally, or a good friend of yours did refer this particular channel, how about a thumbs up, this one here, a like, that is a like, and of course do drop me a comment on the comment section along. And all those three will make me, put a smile on my face. Cheers, tribe. Let's meet in the next episode. Signing out.